Welcome to our Truss T&T call. The T&T stands for Tips and Tactics. Today we are with our fellow member Sean Morris with Blomquist Hale, and we're going to ask him a few tips and tactics from his area of expertise and what he's seeing today. So as I said, Sean, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So I know Blomquist Hale is an employee assistance program. Educate me on what that is.
Yeah, so an employee assistance program is an organization that supports other businesses, helping the business itself and the employees of an organization with the everyday life issues, struggles that employees experience, and certainly help with mental health related challenges, which is a huge thing that all organizations are dealing with, is the emotional health difficulty and challenges that employees are going through, which might be the employee themselves, it might be their family members, and certainly when employees are dealing with those challenges, it causes some difficulty with their productivity, performance, attention, all of those types of things in the work environment. And so the goal that we have at Blomquist Hale is to help organizations through helping their employees be able to resolve and be supported through everyday life issues that they deal with and be able to be back on their feet as soon as possible to be the engaged, high-performing employees that they were hired to be. And we work closely with organizations to help them, particularly through the HR departments, with different things that come up with drug and alcohol-related issues, employee morale, engagement with other employees, relationship stuff that happen within the workplace, so on and so forth.
So I imagine with an epidemic or pandemic and an earthquake here in Utah, you've been fairly busy. What
Times are a little busy and interesting.
What have you seen over the last 3 weeks? What are you seeing? How are things going? Give us an update.
Sure. Well, I think we all know in many respects how things are going, and that things are stressful. People are trying to navigate through an experience that we've never seen before. We've never done something like this. Kids haven't been sent home from school and been told, we're not sure when you'll return or if you'll return. Certainly all of these things just create a lot of uncertainty from a work standpoint. Employees working from home, employees trying to figure out, what's the longevity of my employment? How are we going to work through this? All of those things just create so much uncertainty, some anxieties, and then new information such as you need to stay in your homes or you need to wear a mask. I mean, all of these types of things, again, they're just things we've probably never even imagined, and now we're living through. And that's it's uncomfortable. It's a change. It's different, and certainly that creates a lot of anxiety with all of it.
John, I know all our trust members, one of their main concerns is through all of this craziness, how do they keep up employee morale? And then how do they support those that may be feeling that anxiety or having a spike in some of their mental health things that they're dealing with? So two-part question, right? So for our members, how do they keep employee morale up? And then how do they help those that may be having a more emotional trouble through this time?
Yeah. So as leaders, certainly we have the opportunity to really help establish increasing the employee morale, helping people stay engaged, stay motivated, have hope. And there are some things we can certainly do. Certainly one of those things are be calm ourselves. We've got to take all of this in stride, be able to be the example, and be able to, kind of reassure people that, hey, we're going to get through this. This is okay. Have optimism, have hope. Those types of things are really helpful for employees to hear when the leader is saying and doing it in a calm way to say, hey, we're going to be okay, or we've got this. Now, at the same time, it's important for leaders to be honest with their organizations, with their employees, but doing that in a way that really communicates thoroughly with employees. I think that's one of the keys during this time in particular, is really figuring out how do we communicate to really keep people engaged, keep people aware, help them know kind of what role we want them to play, listen a lot to the experience that employees are having, do some certainly do your one-on-ones and maybe do more frequent one-on-ones to really understand how are they doing, how are they functioning, ask them questions that maybe you don't typically ask them, such as how they're doing in their in their family lives, how's their family kind of navigating through this, how is their work environment. If they're working remotely, they might have a lot of challenges with that particular situation, both in the workspace, maybe having children there. The more we can engage and really communicate and be open with our employees, but also really ask them questions to really learn more of how they're doing, and then try to really be clear on kind of what is the focus, what are the goals that we have, and those goals being kind of right now. Of course, right now, we can look forward to kind of the future and the vision that we have, but right now we probably need to focus a little bit more on the here and now, and how do we make it through day to day, week to week, and what do we want the employees to do to help them or help us, help the organizations, but also in helping them work through this interesting, challenging time.
I love what you said about asking some of those deeper, maybe more personal or vulnerable questions. Because what I was going to ask you next is, what are some of the telltale signs of, hey, that employee who I don't see down the hall anymore, who's in their remote office from home, how do I tell if they are struggling? How do I tell if I need to give them additional resources? So how would you answer that question of how to try and discover that? Because sometimes people don't readily admit that they're struggling with mental health.
Yeah, most times people don't admit, but as we were just saying, the more that we're communicating, and certainly some of your employees better than others, but trying to connect with all employees. I think one of the things that can be really helpful is kind of having a list of all of your employees that you kind of keep in front of you as you're potentially working remotely yourself, and have a list and kind of review that list almost daily to kind of see, okay, where are things at with each individual employee, and which ones do I need to reach out to, connect with, and again, reassure them and be that leader that really validates and supports them through all of this. But in answer more specifically to the question is, another thing that's really important as we communicate through these times is to use the video aspect that we have through various platforms versus just the phone or turning the video part off. Certainly by having the video on, that increases our communication. It helps us to stay more engaged and avoids being distracted as we're having those meetings, discussions. But it also allows us to kind of see and check in better with the employee. And so again, asking them questions about, hey, how are you doing through all of this? How's your family doing through this? Certainly if there's indications where you can see that, gosh, they just visibly don't look well. They look, like they're just struggling, or you can just see it in them. Certainly I'd be part of that, but then also asking those questions. It's hard to assume, even therapists, it's hard for a therapist to know just by kind of observing what somebody else is doing. So really it's important to be asking those questions, just basic questions of how you're doing. How's it working to have your kids at home with you? Do you feel like you're able to get enough sleep during this time? What kind of anxieties or worries are you going through, are you experiencing? And certainly if you see even or hear even more concerning or disturbing information from that, I would encourage you to ask them more specific. If you ever come across an employee that's sharing something that makes you think, gosh, I'm not sure, is this employee even safe? Are they thinking about hurting themselves? I would encourage you to ask those questions specifically. Ask them. With what you just said there about, gosh, I don't know if I can do this any longer, or, what's the point? It's just not worth it anymore. When you hear things like that, ask them specifically, hey, you just said, I'm not sure I can do this anymore, or I don't think it's worth it. What do you mean by that? And then as they kind of answer that question, also could even, ask even more specifically and say, are you at all, based upon what you're sharing with me, or are you thinking about hurting yourself or anything like that? Now, Logan, I know that's kind of the extreme stuff, and sorry to kind of go that direction, but also that's an important thing. One of the things that we have very high suicide rates. Utah's 6th in the nation as far as suicide deaths, but there's also projections that those will increase during this COVID-19 as people are trying to navigate through this. So, the more we can be aware and check in with our employees, overall we can navigate through this.
As we've learned over the last 2 weeks, you can't over prepare for this stuff, right? Now, thank you so much, Sean. Now this next question is now for the leaders inside of Truss. Speak to them on how do they manage their stress? How do they manage their mental health during this time? Because not only they may be fathers, husbands, part-time teachers now, and bosses worrying about maybe payroll or future strategy or cash flow. What advice do you have for them about managing their stress levels at this time?
Yeah, there's so much, and certainly as a leader right now, it can be really challenging for so many different reasons. And kind of that's when our primitive brain kind of kicks in, right? And we it says either fight, flight, or freeze, and certainly that's not going to be helpful. And so we've really got to focus on, we've got to try to engage the executive brain and really think through, what can I do? How can I work through this? And I think there's a few things, and 6 in particular that I think that are really important. I think the first one is to savor. I love the word savor just in kind of what that means, but really being able to be mindful and practice mindfulness, which means to really embrace the moment as you have different positive and good things. Just even eating a piece of chocolate cake and really being able to savor that experience. That's an important thing to help our overall mental health, is being able to really put ourselves in that place and try to avoid being distracted when we're kind of in a place where we're feeling good and we're having good experiences. And certainly we're having some of those. I've heard people say, as difficult as this time is, there's some things that are happening with it. Our family is together more. Some of the pressures aren't the same. We have less distraction. And so being able to really savor those moments. I know for my family, every night we try to sit down and just visit together. And when I can really just try to put the distractions aside and really just embrace with my spouse and my children, that can be just a wonderful, positive experience. So the next one that I would encourage is to be thankful. We know that by being thankful, that our happiness can increase by 25%. And so having gratitude, expressing gratitude, expressing our appreciation to others, expressing appreciation to your employees for the good work that they're doing, for the dedication that they have, for navigating through this and trying to help remain productive and help the organization continue to move forward. And an idea along that line too, with expressing gratitude, is to make handwritten notes. We do so much via email and other mediums like that, but when we can kind of sit down and even just write a handwritten note, maybe put that in the mail and send that to an employee or send that to a friend, that does a lot for that person who will receive it, but it does a lot for us also as we're sharing those things that we appreciate about that other person. The third one is aspire, which means to have optimism, which is to have hope. And it's so important as we go through these times to try to look for the positives, look for the good, because there's plenty of things to be discouraged about. And so it's important that we try to identify and be optimistic and hopeful that, hey, this is going to be okay. And sometimes there's some practices within that even the worst case scenario, and we really take a minute and just kind of think, okay, I can think about the worst case for a second. And now I want to think about the best case scenario, and then take a second to think, okay, what do I really think is going to happen? What we often find is that the worst case scenario isn't likely. And when we can allow ourselves to kind of think through that, but then think of the positives and then think of what we really think is going to happen, that can help us be much calmer and settled with, okay, what I thought or what I was worried about is probably not going to be that bad. So, fourth one then is to give. Giving to others. Giving actually increases our happiness by 42%. And so finding ways to give. I like what Truss is doing of giving out those gift cards and saying, hey, go give those to somebody in need. And by doing things like that, reaching out to others, giving levels of support or giving a gift or giving some financial assistance, any of those types of things, just go a long way to support other people and make us, it just does so much for us internally when we're able to give and support others. So that's another important tip there. And then having empathy. Having empathy for our employees and their situations, the challenges they might be facing, having empathy for our family members, our friends. All of us are going through different experiences with this, and when we can empathize, it draws us closer together and really builds and strengthens relationships, which are so important during this time. Relationships are a big part of, one, what can be developed and even strengthened during a difficult time like this, but it's also that thing that really helps us get through this, is having those support systems and those people that care about us and we care about, and together we're working together and making it through all of this. And then the final one is revive, which revive means that we've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to look at, okay, how am I doing at my nutrition? Am I eating okay? And how am I eating? With many of us now working in different situations, working at home, sometimes we can find ourselves snacking all day long, and that may not be the best thing for us. But making sure that we are still thinking through and getting proper nutrition, that can be so helpful in taking care of ourselves. Sleep, of course, is important, making sure that we're kind of establishing a routine, which can really kind of go out the window when we've got this new norm or this change, and figuring out how do we kind of get back into routine with sleep as well. And then exercise. We all have to get up, be moving, get up from our chairs, even if we can get outside, which is wonderful with the fresh air and those types of things, but even if we can't get outside, or if we're being asked to stay indoors, there are certainly things we can do. There are exercise routines that we can do indoors, walking around in our homes, walking up the stairs a number of times, push-ups, sit-ups, and many others. And certainly you could Google exercises indoors and things like that would give us a lot of ideas. But by doing those different things, it certainly can help us maintain stability with our mental health and allow us to overall make it through this the best as possible and thrive through this experience, which is not something that we really think about during a time like this, but we can be successful, and we can go through this with having positive things happening and get through it when that time comes, having gained a lot through this experience.
Sean, thank you so much. I know you said you had, to me before we got on the call, you had a few additional resources. So what we're going to do is we're going to post this video to YouTube, and then I will link those resources in the comments so people can see those. But if they feel like they need some more assistance themselves, or they have an employee that needs more assistance, what do? Do they just call you, go online? How can they get more help or resources?
Yeah, I would just invite them to call me. I'll give you my cell number. My cell number is 801-971-4401. And I'd be more than happy to take any calls, like you said, whether that be general questions or specific to an employee you might be worried about or a family member. Yeah, please don't hesitate to call. I'd be more than happy to provide any support and help.
Sean, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. I know a lot of us will leave this call feeling like we can be better leaders, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, friends, partners, one of the many roles that we're all feeling right now. And so thank you so much. And hopefully we get to see you again soon at an upcoming Truss event.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
So I just